I can still vividly recall that day. It was the summer of July 6th, 2009. Back then, I was 14 years old, and my mom, who was just 18 years older than me, was out having a good time at a party. I hadn't anticipated her return that night, leaving me alone at home. My home sat at the end of a bumpy dirt road, about half a kilometer long. It was tucked away in a quiet spot, surrounded by other family houses. Next to my place, there was an empty piece of land where my friend and I used to roam during my childhood. We found all sorts of interesting things there, like old mattresses and signs that people had set up temporary shelters. On that unusually hot night, lacking air conditioning, I spent the evening in my living room watching movies. Despite the heat, I kept the windows open until a strange feeling of being watched prompted me to close them. My dog, displaying unusual restlessness, added to my unease. Around 2 a.m., I decided to get some sleep, convincing myself that the weird feeling I had was probably just me being overly worried. To feel safer, I set up the house alarm to keep working, but only for the windows and door sensors. Even though I thought I was pretty street smart and had good instincts, being just 14 made me realize I was still pretty vulnerable. I lay in bed with my dog, trying to get comfortable and fall asleep. But it wasn't working well. I just couldn't seem to convince my dog to help me get some rest. The calm night suddenly got crazy when the alarm started blaring, making my heart race as I jumped out of bed. My dog started barking like crazy, adding to the chaos. The landline phone started ringing, probably the alarm company checking in. Since the only phone was in my mom's room across the hallway, I decided to answer it. Walking through the dark hallway in minimal clothing, remembering that weird feeling of being watched earlier, I rushed into my mom's room with my heart racing, picking up the ringing phone at the same time. Shockingly, when I glanced at the window facing the empty piece of land, I saw 3 sets of glowing eyes. 3 guys were standing outside my house. They had taken off the screen, and the window was wide open, setting off the alarm. The outside was super dark, so I couldn't see much about the guys except for the gleam in their eyes. The evil and rage emanating from those eyes made it clear that I was in immediate danger. I didn't say anything. I just stood there, feeling frozen and terrified, like my stomach had dropped to the floor. My frozen state was broken when my dog rushed by, barking at the window. Shaking off my shock, I picked up the phone and yelled to the police about armed guys trying to get in. After hanging up, I sprinted down the hall and hid in a dusty closet in the garage. I was a bit worried about spiders, but staying quiet was more important. Huddled in the closet, the loud alarm kept blaring, making it hard to know if the guys were inside or knew where I was hiding. As time went by, my worry grew, and I started thinking about how to get to my friend's house next door. The moment of relief finally arrived when I heard the comforting sound of police sirens outside the garage door. As the sirens approached, and the red and blue lights became visible,
I opened the garage door and collided with the cop.
but he pulled himself together as he started listening to my story. Feeling frustrated, I questioned why they took so long, and it turns out one of the cops had a blowout on one of his tires due to my bumpy road. Despite an extensive search, the police couldn't find those 3 guys. But in the empty land behind my place, they found a mattress with duct tape, a knife, and zip ties. My dog, who had scared the men off, was okay in the backyard. After that scary event, even now, I deal with post-traumatic stress disorder from that frightening experience. When I think back to that night, I realize that if I hadn't set up the alarm, things could have turned out really bad for me.